have John Ashcroft here, who is going to continue this introduction. John is from the Relationships Foundation, and he has been working in this space for a long time, and is co-author of a leading book in this area. But I'm going to ask John if you can, seek to answer that question about how does the relational city work.
Just while David is switching over the presentations, so Joseph has given a fascinating sort of overview of some of the issues and challenges for cities as far as sustainability goes. So as the rest of the introduction for this morning, I just want to introduce some of the relational factors. And the first sort of question in thinking about the relationships is, what can you do that doesn't involve relationships? Is there anything in life that you can actually do that doesn't require you to engage in a relationship of some sort? Any suggestions? Because the reality is that any task, particularly anything that is ambitious or complex, requires the contribution of the skills, resources, the capacity of other people. And therefore that's why historically cities developed. The people gathered together for trade, for security, for innovation, and why they flourish. And as Jyoti was saying, why they're now at sort of the heart of sort of productivity and growth is those clusters of relationships that are developing innovation, new ideas, and so on. And obviously that's the reason why you can't simply relocate the City of London to Paris or Frankfurt. It is those dense networks of relationships that make any individual organisation able to function and flourish. You can't simply replicate those quickly or easily. So then the question becomes, do we have the relationships to do the things that really matter? And will we have those relationships in the future? So, there's been a long debate about what matters, so whether GDP is an adequate measure of national progress, and what alternative measures might be placed, and obviously the work of integrated reporting looks at the variety of capitals, but there have been other sort of concepts that have been introduced that help explore that, and well-being is one of those. So that was just simply the idea that if you're stuck on your desert island, you can't do very much at all, however idyllic it might appear. But David Cameron pursued well-being as an idea of one of the goals, one of the things that matters in terms of humans thriving or flourishing. But that last sentence, what makes us happy above all is a sense of belonging, strong relationships with friends, family, and the immediate world around us. So that recognition that of the importance of relationships as being not just a contributor to the things that matter, but actually something that matters in and of themselves. But if you look at one set of those relationships, for example, the family, how does the city, how does the local authority manage something which is a great risk and a great asset? So if you think of anything that a city might need to do, the provision of education, health, social care, welfare, dealing with crime and community safety, all of those depend critically on the contribution of families. You need families that socialise their children before school, that help them with homework, help them with reading. Families provide sort of the bedrock of social care for older people. There are huge health benefits from relationships. So this is, if those relationships aren't in place, there are both significant fiscal risks in terms of the provision of services and picking up the pieces, but also the human cost in terms of the quality of life and the lived experience. And when relationships go wrong, it's not just a fiscal problem. Any major service failure has relationship roots at its core, and the costs are serious. In the end, people die. Vulnerable young children, old people in poor care in hospitals. Reputations are destroyed, careers end, organisations go out of business. And so the costs of relational failure within a city are catastrophic. So that unsustainability can be rudely and catastrophically exposed from time to time. And one of the reasons for that is the very complexity of the networks of relationships around individual issues. So this is a simplified network of care around a young child, Victoria Clambier, who was killed, murdered, in the care of her aunt and her aunt's boyfriend. There was a major public inquiry. But that shows that there are a number of different London local authorities involved: Brent, Ealing, Haringey, 2 different hospitals, police, social services, different health professions. A very complex network of relationships between local authorities, institutions, professions, organisations. The inquiry reported that there were 12 missed opportunities, 12 times in which somebody could have done the right thing that would have identified the risks and dealt with it. But all those 12 opportunities were missed, and all of those 12 opportunities failed because of relational failure. And those were simple questions like a social worker not willing to question a paediatrician's diagnosis, police and social services in dispute about whether this is a criminal investigation or a child protection investigation, a young inexperienced health visitor not willing to question or challenge a dishonest client, or the pressures of a housing team not recognising that there are wider issues involved. But for all of those people, they were in a network of relationships. They didn't at the time realise that that particular relationship, that particular conversation, was a critical moment in the chain of events that would lead to the death of a child. So there's relational complexity to manage. And then the final thought, just to sort of kick off today, is thinking a little bit about what we mean by relationships. So this is one definition that we've drawn on from a Cambridge academic, which distinguishes relationships and interactions. So we're saying a relationship is more than just a chance one-off encounter between two strangers, that there is something more about a relationship that involves that series of interactions between 2 individuals who know each other, and critically that each interaction is influenced by both the past and the future. And that gives us a way of thinking about relationships. So when we think about a series of encounters, we need to think about the nature and the quality of communication. So that might involve, for example, housing design. Does that create opportunities for neighbours to meet face to face? What is the nature of our physical space and the opportunities for meeting? I mean, there are many things about cities that will influence our communication. Or relationships that are shaped by memory and expectation. We can think about the storyline of the relationship, that sense of continuity. So what does it mean in a school if 50% of the pupils turn over, or 50% of the staff turn over each year because of high levels of population mobility, or the experience of the old person whose carer who comes in changes from week to week. But so how you build that story of a relationship that builds a sense of belonging, identity, obligation and loyalty. And that may mean actually the degree of rootedness that people feel in the city. Is this where they belong? Is this where they develop roots and a sense of neighbourhoods? Or where the other is known. When it comes to actually providing services to people, what are the mechanisms and processes by which you know enough about people to understand and meet their needs effectively? Jyoti introduced issues of inequality. So there are those power dynamics of relationship, the conflicting interest groups wanting to shape the future of a city and its direction, its planning. Do you protect your own neighbourhood, or do you say, yeah, let's have new housing for younger families? There'll be all sorts of conflicts, disputes, questions about the power dynamics of relationships in the city. All that sense of shared identity and shared purpose and values. One of the things that Robert Putnam identified in his work on social capital is that actually where you've got shared communal resources, if there is no sense of shared identity, those resources tend to be neglected. But where you have some sense of common identity, common ownership, you get much better management and nurturing of shared spaces and shared resources. So these are all themes that we will explore in some ways during the day, but thinking about in education, housing, health, and all the business and all the other issues that we're exploring, how do we build and sustain those relationships that are critical for achieving the things that really matter?